Hello and welcome back to the Ghost of Alcantra. So last time Nick had a heart-to-heart with his younger self, and now we should be back to Alexandria. And considering we might get a POV of her murder, we might want to brace ourselves, unless she paints a different picture than Nick's nightmares did, so... yeah, let's see. July 25th, 19XX. The over-embellished and perhaps cliché sentiments from our stargazing date didn't wear off even in the face of my increasing nervousness about what was going to happen with Blade. How should one face the possibility of oblivion? I would rather roar than hold my tongue. If only all my days could be like yesterday. Instead, we proceed with the trivial formalities necessary in properly detailing a canon onto bad tempers, unstable men, and defeatist attitudes. As my father had wished, the majority of the staff weren't in the mansion. My father's intent was that the justification for Vlade's departure be as obscure as possible. Additionally, if Vlade was to react poorly and action needed to be taken, the less witnesses, the better. I headed to my father's study at 9 in the evening. I reached my father's study and stood in front of the door for a moment. I had stood up for myself these past 2 months, but I had no control over what happened tonight. I had an ill premonition. I knocked on the door, and my father permitted me to enter. Father was seated at his desk, and Vlade was in one of the chairs in front of it. Behind Vlade were Father's trusted confidants, keeping an eye on Vlade. They looked more like bodyguards than Thorn's staff members. I mean, bodyguards are staff members, right? They emitted a girlish hardiness, but like my father, they had seen better days. I was a little worried. They were old. The only promising component of the setting was that my father had placed my chair quite far away from Vlade's. Once Vlade saw me, his normally calm look morphed into one of shock, then disgust, and was finally replaced with a malicious sneer. He transformed from a calm hunter to a rabid animal, and to signify this transformation, he responded to my sitting down with a cackle like a hyena's. It was a high-pitched, unhinged mockery of a laugh. I gave a worried glance to Father, who stoically waited for Vlade to finish. The bodyguards behind Vlade looked uncomfortable. This went on for a good 10 seconds before Vlade spoke.
"So this is who we were waiting for. I see. Yes, it all makes sense now. I've got a good idea what this is all about now."
He crossed his legs and directed his mocking sneer towards my father.
"Well then, what would you like to know about the murders of Alcantra? Dad?"
Neither of us had referred to Father as anything but Father. Nobody knew what to say for a moment.
"Is that a confession then, Vlade?" "Yes, it is. I take responsibility for the murders of Marina Reddick, Beryl Johnson, and Alicia Reddick. I assume we've gathered here to discuss what to do about your problematic little son?" "This is no time for games, Vlade." "It's the perfect time. After all, we're about to play one. A game with some real high stakes. You've been playing this game a lot longer than I have been, so I look forward to learning what you can teach me." "Is that what you think this is all about, Vlade?" "Of course. Why else would Alexandria be here? She must have blabbed and somehow convinced you to do something about it. That's what I get for opening up to someone."
He wagged a finger at me.
"I'm a man of my word, Alexandria. You'll regret telling Father about me. You'll regret it dearly."
I put myself on the edge of my seat in case I needed to flee, Between my reflexes and the probable geriatric reflexes of the appointed bodyguards, I trusted mine more. Don't pin this on me. You could have just decided not to kill people, and we wouldn't be in this mess. He pretended to look offended.
Mess? What a nasty word to call the situation. It wasn't easy doing what I did.
Much easier than doing what was right, apparently. He sneered at me and turned back towards father.
Okay, you care enough about all of this to have a little chat. I know you don't have the courage to turn me in, wouldn't want the precious family name ruined after all, so let's hear what your plans are. You're right, I'm not going to turn you in, but it is not because I am afraid of ruining the family's name. That was true before, it is true no longer. The family's name will be ruined soon enough anyway.
Flight's sneer melted into a look of confusion.
Ruined. You inferred incorrectly about what this meeting is for. This meeting is to inform you that because of your actions, I have decided you are unfit to be the next head of our family. I internally braced myself, knowing that Vlad was not going to take this news well. I glanced over, keeping a close eye on him. Vlad's look had morphed once again. He was shocked, but a state of shock encased in stone. He had frozen. Time itself had stopped for him. And that Alexandria will be the next head of the family.
My father solemnly gazed forward at Vlad, who remained a statue. Seconds ticked away, and there was no response. The terror of the situation transitioned into awkwardness as Vlad failed to grasp the reality of the situation. My father continued.
I take part of the blame for this, and contrary to what you believe, I still love you as my son. I will not be turning you into the police.
Vlad finally responded, and without a change of expression, whispered very softly.
Oh, is that so? Yes, it is. Alexandria will be given the headship. You and I will move somewhere else.
Father outlined his vision of what would become of him and Vlad, as well as detailed what was to happen with the family. I got the feeling Vlad was no longer listening. He looked forward, but his eyes were cloudy, as if he was seeing some other world, contemplating some other possibility. My stomach dropped in anticipation. Vlad suddenly sprang from his chair, and I jumped backwards out of mine. I underestimated the reflexes of the bodyguards. Before Vlad could start towards me, they had each of his arms pinned with their large frames. Vlad struggled for a moment before roaring at me with all his wrath.
How long have you been conspiring with him?
Ultimately, this was what I had expected. I cautiously gauged the situation to make sure the bodyguards had Vlad firmly restrained before I put my chair upright again and sat back down. I responded quietly. For a while.
Of all people, I thought you would know what I've been through.
Vlad lowered his voice slightly, though his face remained contorted. There was no longer any trace of the handsome heir-to-be, only the visage of a madman remained.
And here I thought you were my only ally in the world.
I couldn't believe what I just heard. Me? Your ally? After you threatened my life?
You know what suffering I've been through. You know what this means to me. If you had just stayed out of it, I would have given you your freedom. You could have avoided what's going to happen to you. I stayed silent, not wanting to give Vlad the satisfaction of a response. Like I said, I'm a man of my word. Your life will end by my hands, Alexandria Thorne. Before I could even process his renewed threat, he turned towards father. And you have the nerve to say you love me? My father was not shaken by Vlad's rage. I do. It's true. As if you loved me, then you wouldn't do this to me. It is because I love you that I do this. You claim to love a son who you hid, who you abused, who was never good enough, who you robbed of a life anyone would want.
Vlad laughed once again, the howl of a madman. He cackled at the seemingly hilarious thought that he still had his father's love, before stopping suddenly.
You do not love me, and never have. I do love you, but I acknowledge that I've wronged you. What you've done is my fault.
Blade gave a small chuckle in response.
I can't even get credit for my own murders now. I'm not even allowed to say that my madness, my desperation is my own. Even my killings are all your handiwork, Dad. It is I who was trying to protect you, and the damned secrets that have piled up and buried your children. Don't pretend to love me if you know what I have done for this family. Accuse me all you want, but your accusations remain untrue. Because I love you, I wish for you to change, which is why I will not turn you in and instead take you away where we can start all over. You think being left to rot will save me? I think you can be saved, Vlad. You think I'll be saved by the rejection of all I've done?
My father didn't respond, and Vlad continued.
Everything I've done and suffered for will be for naught, and you think this is going to save me? Telling me my life has been wasted will save me?
Blade started cackling again. In his depraved mind, what my father suggested was genuinely absurd.
I told Alexandria this, so I might as well tell you too, Dad. It is too late to save me. I do not believe that to be the case. And if I was to be saved, you couldn't do it. Anyone but you. I'll never give you the satisfaction of fixing what you have broken.
My earlier warnings to my father had fallen on deaf ears, and now that he had personally witnessed the shattered nature of his son, I wondered if he still held hope that he and Vlad could live together as father and son. Vlad turned to the bodyguards.
You guys have done a splendid job thus far, but can I sit down? All this yelling has me exhausted.
They let him sit down, but continued holding his arms tightly. Vlad's demeanor had completely shifted. It was almost like he was relieved, like a massive weight had been lifted off his shoulders. He jutted his head in my direction.
She's an irresponsible one, Dad. Bet you she told that Nick Fox all about us already. It doesn't matter anymore if she did. The world will know Alexandria Thorne soon enough. True, true.
He turned towards me with a bright smile. His sudden cheerfulness threw me off.
What do you think about all this, sister?
I think you should be grateful that father is willing to not turn you into the police.
Oh, don't believe all that drivel he spilled about loving me. He just doesn't want word of his son being a murderer to get out.
Whatever he believes, you're lucky. If it was me, I would have already turned you in.
Yes, I bet you would have. You have a heart of stone. You'd have me executed if you could.
That's not true.
It isn't. Then what do you call this?
I tilted my head in puzzlement. Vlad chuckled.
This is already an execution.
My father and I both glanced at each other.
It's an execution for the Thorne family. That includes all of us.
Vlad jutted his head in father's direction and then at me, and then gave his chest a little pat with his chin.
Elga Thorne, Alexandria Thorne, and Vlad Thorne will all die. The Thorne family ends tonight.
The bodyguards tightened their grips, though Vlad made no effort to escape. In fact, he continued smiling cheerfully. My father responded to break the silence.
And how do you intend to pull that off? If I have to keep you restrained until we get to Washington, I will. Oh, no offense to these guys, but they won't be able to stop me very long.
He turned towards his captors and gave them each a wink.
Just giving myself a rest for the upcoming scuffle. All that yelling took a lot out of me, you know.
He turned towards me and gave me a wink as well.
Alexandria had the right idea. Probably should have just chopped my head off and be done with it. None of you in this room stand a chance against me. I'm the only one here who has actually killed with his own hands. I know these guys' combat experiences amount to sitting behind desks in the army, all thanks to our family making the necessary payments. I've killed. They haven't. They can't stop me.
The bodyguards tightened their grips in defiance, and my father spoke for them.
That won't happen. We'll see, Dad.
Blade laughed, and then looked up towards the ceiling.
Either I became the greatest head, or I destroyed this family. I was happy with either. So it's to be the latter. Fine then. That's probably the better outcome. Never again can this family ruin anyone else's life. The sins of this family will end with me destroying it. At long last, I'll finally be free.
I couldn't help but feel that Vlad honestly believed that. He was truly happy for a chance to destroy the Thorns. I won't let the Thorns be destroyed, Vlad. He turned towards me.
Oh, and tell me what you have that will save this family?
This struck me as an inappropriate time for a job interview. I have the judgment to acknowledge the right things to do and the courage to do them. I have the kindness needed to remedy our family's wrongs. I have the strength to overcome all the barriers you and Father have placed before me. Even if I were to die, by virtue of accepting and connecting with another person, this family will never be destroyed. Blade chuckled.
So you won't be forgotten then?
Never.
Alexandria Thorn will live on?
Always.
Good for you, and good for him, Janik, that is. I wish that you have your best of luck in overcoming your death.
He sighed.
You do have all that I lack. You would have made a great head. And let me say this. I acknowledge the last head of the Thorn family, Alexandria Thorn.
He jutted his head towards the door.
We'll talk soon, sister. You might want to leave now. It's not going to be pretty. Yes, Alexandria, there's nothing more to be said here. Don't worry, Vlad won't escape. Get some rest.
My father and Vlad exchanged looks, my father stoic and solemn, Vlad looking absolutely giddy. That was my cue. I wasn't going to undercut the last moments between father and son. All right then. Good night, Father.
Good night, Alexandria.
Vlad ignored me and I left the study. My father gave me a small wave and smile, which I returned. If I knew that was going to be the last interaction with my father, I probably would have done more than smile and wave. As for Vlad, I would see him one last time. When I passed him to exit the study, I thought for a moment I could see his look of happiness vanish to be replaced by a shadow. I saw the husk of a defeated man, someone who had given up on everything. It was the look of a man who believed that there was no place for him in this world anymore. But when Vlad entered my room 15 minutes later, knife in hand and blood all over him, he was back to smiling. I didn't reflect on the horror of the situation because I immediately started analyzing my prospects of survival. It probably wasn't a good idea to jump out of the window. Even if I survived the jump from the window, I'd surely break my legs and then Vlad could easily finish me off. I would have to try and get past Vlad and then make a break for it. Vlad noticed me eyeing his knife.
Oh, this is Gatyuka. It means viper in Russian. I stole this knife from Father's collection a long time ago. A couple of years back, I commissioned a custom-made sheath that would allow me to carry Gatyuka discreetly. but Yuka always has my back. Literally. That's where the sheath is. I simply waited till the old guys relaxed too much, freed myself, and then it was all over for them.
Of course he would be a monologuing villain. And father?
I spent a little more time with him. Our conversation isn't for your ears, though. That's between father and son.
And me?
You'll be next, just as promised. Don't worry, I'll follow you shortly. The thorns end tonight.
Vlad leaned against the door, knowing that getting past him was my only option for survival. There was the pounding in my chest, the pulsing in my head, but my inner voice was surprisingly quiet. There weren't any lamentations, there weren't any reflections. I was focused on the upcoming struggle. But there was just one flash of regret, and that was about Nick. Yes, what I regretted most about my life was that I never said goodbye.
Dad begged me to spare you, but I'm afraid I can't do that.
Typical. What does this accomplish for you? Can you really face death with more contentment, knowing father and I are dead?
This accomplishes nothing, just like everything else I did in my life. But will this allow me to be at peace with death? Yes, I think it will.
Then, to my surprise, Vlad returned his knife to the sheath on his back. He was now unarmed. That's right. I was the ruler of this world. I had never said goodbye. It was time to change that.
There's no need to hash out the gruesome details, right, Alexandria? We've done this once, there's no need to do it again. You put up a hell of a fight last time, given you were unarmed.
You could have at least given me a weapon to make it fair. It wasn't fair that you got that small sword of a knife and I had nothing but the will to survive.
You also had those nasty nails of yours. Damn near tore out my eye.
I hope it hurt.
It sure did.
Vlad stepped out from the front of the door and tapped it behind him, signaling that it was time for me to leave.
That's enough reminiscing. Get going. Say goodbye to him. That's what this was all for, after all.
Right. I started past him and grabbed the door handle. I turned around to ask him one more question. Do you regret it? He sat down on my bed and cupped his hands together like he was about to lecture me. Then he thought better of it and leaned backward on the bed and said,
I don't think I regret everything, but I do regret killing you.
Well, at least you feel bad about killing me.
I hope you're not forgiving me.
I'm not. Probably never will.
An eternity is a long time to hold a grudge.
We'll see.
Vlad Thorn will be remembered as a maniac. He'll be hated for as long as he's remembered. People will sympathize with Alexandria Thorn and will remember her courage.
Are you really trying to justify yourself?
No, just commenting that I face an eternity of regret.
He pointed towards the door behind me.
Make sure you don't do the same.
I nodded. Right. Goodbye, Vlad.
Goodbye, Alexandria.
With that, I turned around, threw open the door, and flew towards the staircase. I knew where Nick would be. He had been stuck in the same spot for 10 years. It was time I let him go. Okay, that's a nice way to not show us, or let us experience the brutal details. I was where I had found her that morning, all those years ago. The night sky was swimming away, and the morning sun began to ascend from the horizon. It was the dawn of the end. I had been waiting for a ghost. She would return, and then we would part ways. This should have happened already. I had been afraid of letting go, afraid to let one story end and have another one start. But I was ready now. I catapulted down the stairs, the necessity of farewell prevailing over my bodily limitations that insisted I trip. He was waiting for me, and I needed to see him just one last time. Nick, I've been so selfish. I was selfish in life and even more selfish in death. But please, let me be selfish just one more time. You must live, Nick. Live. Please live. But not for my sake. Please live for your own. Loving someone doesn't make you weaker. It makes you stronger. Don't let my death be the siren call for yours. Let our shared time serve as the strength you need to live through each passing day. Please grant this last selfish wish of mine. I replayed the past, those rose-tinted days. I looked towards the future, those monochrome possibilities. I thought of the worlds without you and ran from them. I thought of the worlds with you in them and buried myself in the delusions. All that we were, all that we could have been, I lost myself in that storm of regret, nostalgia and longing. That was enough for me. If reality had no more place for Alexandria Thorne, I had no need of reality. But here we were now. Was your story just the sweetest of lies? Honey meant to lure me away back to that realm without you? Was this my own created fantasy? An intoxication meant to ease my burdened soul? A remedy for my heartache? Whatever it was, whatever was intended, it was enough. I reached the first floor, threw open the front door, and dashed towards the gates. I ran past the gate down the path toward where he'd be. Nick, don't let your kindness die along with me. You're 27. Imagine the years to come, the people you'll meet. Imagine the person famished from disregard, in desperate need of the understanding that comes from connection. Imagine it is you who meets that person. Imagine yourself as that person, and you meet someone like I met you. The world needs kindness more than anything. Don't run away from the world that so desperately needs kindness, and where such wonderful things blossom from that kindness. See the world, meet people, have dreams, fall in love. Once upon a time, I thought you needed me. I now know that wasn't true. Even still, you wanted me. That's enough for me. It's enough that you still love me. I will live, Alexandria. It was I who needed you, and still do, but I know that you'll never leave me. The persistence of your presence beside me. I thought before that it was a curse, but now I know it is a blessing. I was too enamored with my self-hatred to accept your love for me. I won't waste this opportunity you've given me. In all the lifetimes, for all the Nicks to come, when June 6th comes around, I will invite Alexandria Thorne to see the fireworks with me. It was the best decision I ever made. No amount of misery can compare to the joy that comes from knowing someone you love. You reminded me of that. Thank you, Alexandria. I will live, and I will not regret. I sprinted down the path as fast as I could. Before I returned to being unbounded by time, by space, by all the laws of mortality, I had to cherish the feeling that each and every moment was special. There was not a moment to be wasted, lest we waste our goodbye. We have now, and we won't have later, but we will eventually have forever. Of that I have no doubt. But there are things you can only do in life. There are things you can feel only in life. Only in that precious frame between two periods of nothingness can exist certain possibilities. Just a flash, and it's over, but it's the briefness that makes it so special. that it ends is what makes it meaningful. There is nothing more certain than that it will end, Nick. Until then, treasure that bright spark, that flash of light, the blink of life. You can return to me after that. I can wait a little longer. I saw her now, racing down the path, a comet caught in the gravitational pull of her idiot lover. I could now see him, my dummy, my best friend, my soulmate. We had been given this opportunity to reunite, but I knew because I loved him that I had to push him away from me for now. The sun rose behind her, the ground started turning into light. The light kept growing and growing till it looked like the stars were at our side. We would say goodbye in a sea of stars. This realm knew the end was near. Before, because I loved her, I couldn't let go of her. Now, because I know she loved me, I had to let go of her. I was in front of him now, panting, brushing aside my hair. Urgency sometimes doesn't allow for presentation. I smiled at him, grateful for our reunion, grateful for our farewell. Thus, Alexandria Thorne begins her exit off of the stage, covered in sweat, brimming with joy. She was smiling, obviously tired from a sprint here. I wonder why she couldn't use her ghost powers to just, teleport here. She was so dramatic. To be fair to her, the situation called for being a little dramatic. Everything had been for this moment. It was finally time to say goodbye. The area began to glow, setting the stage for our farewell. The lights in the sky shimmered from the dew of the dawn, mixed with the beginning of my tears. Parting, really such sweet sorrow. So sweet, and so sad. Yet we have to say goodbye. I return to death, you return to life. I brushed aside my tears and presented my grandest, most dazzling smile to send Nick off. Let us say goodbye, and with that, put a close to the tale of Alexandria Thorne. She snapped her fingers, and her outfit changed to the celestial dress she had been wearing when we first reunited. Tears began to form around the corners of my eyes as the world around us dissipated into the light of the stars, signaling that it would soon take Alexandria away from me. Looking at the Alexandria in front of me now, with her long wavy hair and confident form, I realized that even if we would eventually be reunited, there was a life with her that I could never have. I would never see her in her middle age. I would never see her as a grandmother. We would never grow old together. The creases and wrinkles, her gold hair changing to silver, the beauty of aging. I would never get to know that Alexandria Thorne, and the thought made me very sad. The moisture around my eyes continued to build as it sunk in that this really was goodbye. I told you that when I died, I had 3 regrets. I regretted that I never told you I loved you, that I never kissed you, and that I never said goodbye. 2 of those 3 regrets have been remedied. Only to say goodbye remains. She gestured at the world around us that was beginning to disappear, tears in her own eyes. So here we are. I only had one more opportunity to assure her that her efforts to reach me had not been in vain, that I could live without her. No, that wasn't right. That I could live with her, knowing that she would never leave me. I know I really shouldn't get the benefit of the doubt given how I was this last decade, but I'll be all right, Alexandria. I'll face life. I won't give up. I promise. You've made a lot of promises to me, Nick. And I'll keep all of them. After all, What's a lifetime compared to an eternity with you? Surely even I can handle like 60 more years when I know that I'll have all the time in the world with you afterwards. She laughed and brushed aside a tear. For us now, eternity consists of invitations to fireworks, confessions on a cliffside, kisses under the moonlight, and the remembrance of all we were, all that we ever meant to each other. But one day, our eternity will be us dancing among the stars together, the echo of a love story that once was, the fanfare of a love story that never ends. Alexandria, I want you to ask me to grant you one more wish. What more could I possibly ask for? I won't let Alexandria Thorne be forgotten. I don't think you could forget me if you tried, Nick. Besides me, I'll tell people about you, what you were like, how brave you were, how much you meant to me. Let me not just be a memory, let me be a story. That's what you said, right? Let me make one more promise before I go. I promise I won't let you just be a memory. You would do that for me? I was always content knowing that I'd be a part of you. I knew that there was proof I existed. But I'm not content with just that. Alexandria Thorne's story doesn't end here. You said it yourself. One day our eternity will be us dancing among the stars. I'll make that happen for sure. All right then. But it's not just my story, it's also yours. You can't tell the story of Nick Fox without Alexandria Thorne, and the story of Alexandria Thorne without Nick Fox. Nick Thorne now? I don't think they'll let you register your marriage with a dead girl. You were the one who said the heavens or whatever would recognize our union. That's right, I did. Okay then, it's a promise. Tell them about us. Tell others about our story. Alexandria looked around at the rising lights around us. It looked like she herself was joining the stars, growing brighter and brighter. We're just about out of time. You're ready to go back. I'm glad. I'm going to miss you, Alexandria. I know you will, and I will miss you too. But you'll be okay, I know it. Tears began to flow freely down her cheeks, and it was the same for me. Nevertheless, her smile remained. I died so afraid that you would never know how much I loved you. My heart beat for 18 years, but I only lived for 2 months. I have you to thank that I knew what it was like to live at all. My feelings of gratitude, fear, and regret were so strong that they allowed me to become the ghost I am now. I'm glad you know now how much I love you. I'll always be the ghost by your side, rejoicing in the good times, languishing in the bad. I'll be with you, forever and always. She stepped forward and gave me a hug. Forever and always, Nick. I didn't try to stop myself from crying while we held each other in our arms. I know she had never left me. I knew she would never leave me. Still, goodbye was so hard. I tried to make one more joke, one last jab for the road, so that I wouldn't lose my resolve to return to life in the face of saying goodbye to the person I loved most. What's it like being a ghost anyway? Forever and always? Isn't that a little clingy? She laughed and gave me a kiss on my left cheek. Forever. Then she gave me a kiss on my right cheek. And always. That doesn't answer my questions. She smiled and ignored me, then gave me a kiss on my lips. She stepped away with a smile. Be happy. Be healthy. Tell Warburton, Terence and Jenny I said hi. Tell your parents that I hope they're doing well. Find something you enjoy doing. Touch someone else's heart. Have your heart touched. Fall in love. Have a good life, Nick. I'll find something I enjoy doing. I'll touch someone else's heart. I'll have my heart touched. But at least allow me this, Alexandria. I'll never meet anyone who means as much to me as you do. That's not true. Yes, it is. I loved you when I was with you. I loved you after I lost you. I'll love you still when I return to you. You're the only one for me. Goodbye makes romantics of us all. I promise to live a good life, but I'm yours. It'll have to be a good life, knowing that there's someone waiting for me. You say such sweet things sometimes. Sweet enough that the girl waiting for you will have no trouble believing them. Alexandria was nearly transparent now, dissolving into this glowing world, ready to join the lights in the sky where she belonged. It's time, Nick. I nodded. She was fading, and I was starting to be pulled away, back into the realm of the living. Alexandria put her hand on my cheek. I put my hand over hers. It would be the last touch between us. There was only one thing left to say now. Goodbye, Alexandria. She pulled her hand away. She stepped back and gave me one last smile that melted my heart and broke it all at once. How could I live life without her? I didn't know, but I had to try. I raised my hand in farewell to my one true love. She raised her hand back. Thank you. I love you. Goodbye. And the world erupted into a storm of light, taking her away from me and sending me back to where I belonged. Goodbye, my beloved Alexandria, until we meet again. Constellations End. Constellations Love Wins is the achievement we got. That was beautiful. I also really liked her speech on kindness, that the world needs kindness. It really does. It really, truly does, so yeah. Okay, final part, Artemis and Orion. July 8th, 1997. I woke up in a massive amount of pain. I knew I was back in living reality because only living reality could hurt this much. The doctors told me it was a miracle I had survived. I had been unconscious in the intensive care unit for more than a week. The collision with a motorcyclist had punctured my lungs, broke 14 ribs, fractured my right femur, broke my right wrist and arm, caved in my chest, and to top it off, left me with a pretty big bruise on my head. For better or worse, despite all my injuries, it looked like I was going to be okay, though I'd be stuck in the hospital for some time. Oh boy, yeah, I just had the thought, what if we had that whole spiel about living a good life and then he woke up and was like, you know, paralyzed from the neck down or something? Which you can still, I guess, enjoy life then, but it's a lot harder. Let's just put it that way, yeah. Oh boy. Okay, but yeah, heal. Okay. My parents were with me. They had come with me in the ambulance that transferred me from Alcantra to the bigger city hospital. When I woke up, my mother about put me back into the ICU from an overjoyed reaction. Thankfully, the nurses saved my life. My father wasn't much better and probably re-broke some of my ribs with his hugs. Oh dear. I wasn't going to be let out until I had passed some rehab checkpoints, and they were certain that I'd have no trouble breathing from my injuries. After confirming that my cognitive capabilities seemed functional, I began doing rehab. I hope you also have enough money because, well, this is in America. My time in the hospital was boring. Other than doing my exercises, I just laid on my bed, thinking, trying to digest what I had just gone through. A little over a week had passed, but it felt like 4 months to me. Waking up had been kind of a letdown.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, even just me thinking of all the real stuff now, like we just had this beautiful speeches and everything, and now it's like, damn, hospital bills are a thing, right?
Oh well, that's life. Whoop.
Oh, I didn't mean to go to the menu. Sorry, I don't know what that was.
I had gone through such vivid emotional trauma and joy, and now I was back in the world of broken bones and aching muscles. It was different, and I was confused. I was happy, sad, excited, nervous, regretful, grateful, content, and envious all at once. I thought of myself as a simple sort of guy. How could one person feel all this? Since when was I able to tie myself into emotional knots like this? Then there was the matter of Alexandria and I. Did I believe in ghosts? I had always loved the legend of Alcantra, but I don't think I ever really believed it actually happened. But now? How could I ever deny that story? How could I deny the existence of my own Ghost of Alcantra? I found myself desperately wanting to believe that what happened to me was real, that Alexandria had saved me, and that she was waiting for me. But I also knew that no one would believe me if I told them. Living in the hospital awoke my rationalistic side. There were plenty of explanations for what happened to me. It could have been in my head. I was drugged up in the ICU after all. My brain could have been trying to cope with what was happening to me. The details in the story made sense, but of course they would. They matched with what was already in my head. I knew the layout of the Thorn Mansion, having visited after Alexandria died. I knew where the secret passage was that had been made public after it all happened. Alexandria knowing I had been transferred to the bigger city hospital could be because I knew that patients with serious injuries in Alcantara were transferred there. The best evidence I had that it all happened was that I survived in the first place. Like I said, the doctors thought it was a miracle I had survived. So I spent my days reflecting, not knowing if I needed or just wanted what had happened to me to be real. Knowing full well that any attempt to communicate what had happened to me would make me look crazy. That made me sad, but I planned to live regardless. Perhaps I was more delusional than ever, more obsessed with Alexandria's ghost than I had ever been, but I had promised her. Whether that promise was to her or the ghost that lived within me, it didn't matter. A promise to Alexandria was a promise. My confusion didn't shake my newfound vigor to live. Everyone, especially my parents, fussed and worried about me. I didn't blame them. The police had ruled the whole thing an accident from the motorcyclist taking the corner too fast, and that's what I had told people as well, but I knew there was going to be some suspicion that I had tried to commit suicide. I know my parents had already been worried about me since they knew I had come home because I didn't know what to do with my life. That was going to change. It had to. But how? I had decided to live, but what did that entail? Scream from the mountaintops that I loved Alexandria? Go back to school and get a degree in something I was passionate about? Since her death, I hadn't had dreams, ambitions, goals. I barely even had desires. I didn't know how to live. How did one start living? I can't remember, did he have therapy at all after Alexandria's death? I can't remember now. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital. I was let out on the 22nd of June, though I was still on crutches. I was making good progress, so the cast could be taken off in another 3 weeks if I was lucky. Everything still hurt, but I wasn't in danger of dying. I hadn't told anyone yet what had happened to me, but I knew I needed to tell my parents. I wanted to reassure my parents that I was going to be okay, and the only way I knew how to do that was to tell them about my experiences. That's fair to tell them. I mean, whether they believe it really happened or not doesn't matter, right? As long as it gives you a reason to live. That's fine, right? If they thought their son a lunatic, so be it. They'd still love me, even if I was crazy. I spent a week back at home, miring in my dualities, anxious about my contentment, restless about my newfound peace, sad that I was happy, and happy that I was a little sad. I could put it off no longer. I needed to talk about what had happened to me. I wouldn't know for sure if what had happened to me was real until I died, but I just needed someone to listen. I asked my parents if they could take me to the spot where Alexandria and I used to meet up at night. I told them I had something I wanted to tell them there. On the night of the 29th, we went together as a family. My mom brought a picnic blanket and we sat down under the moon and stars like Alexandria and I used to. I told them what I had experienced. I told them how I went through a self-induced torture of reliving the murders of Alcantra from an amnesiac state. Then I told them how Alexandria told me our story from her perspective, albeit with some modifications, to try and convince me to continue living. I also told them about the conversations I had with the other people who had shown up. I did my best to explain my messy feelings, how I wanted everything that happened to be real, knowing full well that there was a good chance it wasn't. It took me nearly 2 hours to talk through things, and I felt bad because we were already way past my parents' bedtime. Whether or not they believed it, both my parents cried frequently throughout my retelling. I couldn't tell if they were crying because they thought I was a lost cause, or because they were emotionally touched. You can be honest with me, I know it sounds crazy. To which my mother started crying even harder. My dad blew his nose and then spoke up.
It's a little crazy, son, but we'll believe you anyway.
My mother nodded her head vigorously. I know you believe I had some experience, but I know it's hard to believe Alexandria's ghost is still watching me and that there's some sort of afterlife in which she's waiting for me.
Does it matter?
Does it matter? Of course it did. Mom saw the look on my face and rushed to explain herself.
No, that's not what I meant. Obviously it matters regarding Alexandria's fate, but what I meant was, for the rest of your living life, does it matter?
What do you mean?
If it's actually real or all in your head, doesn't matter. It's real either way.
One of those reels makes me feel a lot better about myself than the other. My dad interjected.
Your mother is right, Nick. At least from your parents' perspective, we don't care what type of reel it is. We're just happy that it's caused you to want to live.
What did I say? Yeah.
The end result is the same, Nick. You'll find out eventually if you're to be reunited with Alexandria. Until then, all you can do is take the best from what has happened to you. Some people believe in God, others believe in an afterlife. Some people believe that we can all be kind to each other. Some people think that meaning can be created. Everyone needs something to believe in, something to keep us going. Believe in the Alexandria who has given you the strength to continue on. At the very least, your mother and I would be very happy if you do.
Maybe I had been thinking about this wrong all along. Who knows what happens to us when we die? Until then, we were stuck with life, and all the possibilities could be true. You know, guys, I think Alexandria would say something similar. I think she'd say that all this was a way to deal with reality rather than escape from it.
She was a very smart girl, Nick.
But I'll be honest, it definitely sounds like I'm doing a lot of coping.
What's wrong with that? You make it sound like coping is a bad thing. I have all sorts of techniques to cope with married life with your mother.
Howard!
I'm trying to lighten the mood, dear.
I've been coping ever since I left Tim, the engineer.
This family, oh boy. I know, engineers, Mom. You definitely made the right choice. At least I would have more money. Money isn't everything. Easy for you to say. My baby is rich. You can't get rich in 5 years of an engineer's salary, especially since I quit. I laughed, maybe the first time since I had woken up. Maybe living was as simple as making jokes with people you care about. Who knows? I had a lifetime left. Maybe even I could figure out how to live in a lifetime. You know, you guys are wiser than I thought. You said some pretty good things in my pseudo-afterlife experience too. Of course we're wise. We're your parents. I'm not sure parenthood equates to being wise. Ain't you? Well, come talk to us whenever, about whatever. We're happy to talk. I'll do that. Thanks. Shortly after, we packed up the picnic blanket and returned home. I was 27 now, but I figured I would always be their baby boy. That would never change, no matter what happened. The thought made me happy. The following afternoon, I called up Warburton. I had gotten so much positive support from my parents that I wanted a bit of a reality check. My parents were biased. So was Warburton, but he'd be honest with me. After doing some catching up and assuring him I was feeling fine, I gave him a condensed version of what I had experienced. Dude, no offense, but that sounds pretty crazy. I couldn't help but laugh. Yeah, don't worry, I know it sounds crazy. Those opioids they use for surgery probably go... Those opiates they use for surgery probably go crazy. Wouldn't surprise me if they had you in a hallucinogenic nirvana or something. I figured you'd say something like that. I don't even know if I believe it happened myself, but I want to believe it really did happen. Do you think it's a problem if I believe in a delusion? When you put it like that, it sounds bad, but even if you're nuts, I don't think it's bad for you to believe it happened. If you say you're ready to try living again, then I don't give a shit what sort of nonsense you think happened to you. Anything is better than going right back to how you were before all this. Probably, but it feels weird to live because I believe in something that might not have happened. Why do you keep using the word believe? It's not like you need to believe it happened to gain the desire to want to live from it. My parents said something similar. They told me it doesn't matter if it's real or not. I agree with them. Stories aren't real, and they convince people to do things all the time. Who cares what sorts of narcotic-induced euphoria got you to get your ass in gear again? Hell, I gotta get me on that stuff. I don't recommend getting hit by motorcycles. I'd be fine. I'm fat. Shit would bounce right off. Physics don't work that way. Physics mean nothing to true blubber. They really let you graduate college? 2.7 GPA was good enough to become a basketball coach. You told me it was above 3. I was embarrassed then, but I got a job, so I can tell the truth now. Should I really be coming to you for life advice? Probably not, dude, but until you make some new friends, I'm what you got. I laughed at his honesty. I'm very grateful for what I've got. Real or not real, who knows? Did it matter or not? It didn't matter, not now at least. Live or not live? Live. Those were the conclusions I had come to. All that was left was to show that I was finally ready to move forward in life again. July 12th, 1997. I was meeting with Scarlett today. A couple of weeks ago, I sent her an email asking her how she was doing, while also updating her about my life. She responded and told me she was going to be in Alcantra this weekend because she was visiting some old friends from the university. She wouldn't mind meeting up, so we arranged to meet at the cafe we used to go to together today. I realized that me reaching out must have been pretty weird to her. After all, she didn't know what I had been through.
I also had no intention of telling her. It would have come off as the worst ever "let's get back together" plea. Imagine trying to tell someone that they really helped you out in purgatory. Talk about an awkward reunion. Even still, selfish and one-sided as it may have been for me, I didn't want her out of my life completely. I arrived at the cafe a little early, using a single crutch to support myself. I got us a table and Scarlett arrived a couple of minutes later. She gave me a wave as she sat down. "I'm going to be honest with you, Nick. I'm here mostly because I'm curious to find out what excuse you're going to give me to try and get back together."
What, you don't think that I just wanted to catch up?
She looked at me a little skeptically.
Okay, I deserve the skepticism. I know it's weird to reach out after 6 years.
I guess it goes both ways. It's not like I reached out either. I tossed Scarlett a menu.
Anyway, I'm not trying to get back together. I just wanted to catch up. Honest.
What brought that on?
I shrugged.
You get sentimental after near-death experiences. Figured I didn't want to lose all the good things I had in my life for good. Oh yeah, how's the recovery going?
Pretty good. Should be able to get rid of the crutch in a couple of days.
That seems like a really fast recovery for someone who broke pretty much everything in their body.
I'm pretty dedicated these days.
That's new. I laughed.
I guess it is.
I called over a waiter and we put in our orders. So, besides the getting hit by motorcycles thing, how has life been going?
I quit my job and moved back in with my parents, so it could have been better.
Scarlett looked at me a little warily. Don't tell me you're going to hit me up for cash.
Of course not. You really don't think much of me, do you?
An unemployed ex suddenly gets in contact after all these years. I've got to be on my guard.
I've got plenty of money. I worked as an engineer for 5 years. I didn't like it much though. Then the motorcycle accident happened and it was kind of rough, but you know, I'm actually doing pretty okay right now.
What? The motorcycle accident turned your life around?
Actually, it kind of did.
I laughed as Scarlett looked at me like I was crazy. So, what's up with you these days? About what you'd expect from me.
So, CEO of a Fortune 500 company where you make all the employees lick your boots?
That a fantasy of yours?
I think it's a fantasy of yours.
Well, I'm not CEO, but I'm climbing up the ladder for GM. Just got promoted to principal engineer.
Already? Damn, you are a career woman. Is it a lot of work?
Not a lot of work. A shit ton of work. But I like being busy. The waiter brought us our pasties, which made me nostalgic. Hard to believe it had been 6 years since I had last been here. You're looking for a new job yet?
Haven't really thought about it. Been focused on my recovery. I told my parents I'd decide on what I do by the end of the year.
Gonna stay in engineering?
No idea. I didn't like it much, but I'm not sure what else I can do at this point.
I think you'd be great behind the cash register at McDonald's.
I busted out laughing, and a couple of moments later, so did Scarlett.
Sorry. I'm sure you'll figure it out.
I'm sure I will, but you might be the most qualified person in the world to think that I am definitely not going to figure it out.
You weren't that bad, Nick.
Nah, you were right. I was pretty bad.
I smiled at her.
It'd be an honor to serve the future CEO of GM her Big Mac meal.
What CEO is going to McDonald's?
Ones who prioritize cost efficiency?
Scarlett smiled back. Well, tell you what, when I'm CEO, I'll treat you to pasties here.
Nah, when you're Hollywood, you'll forget all about me. But I'll be telling everyone I know that the CEO of GM used to bully me in college.
Is bullying what we're calling going out with me? You definitely did a lot of yelling at me during our classes. That's because you were being stupid. See? Bullying. She smirked. Anyway, I'm not going to become Hollywood and forget you. Of course not. That's why I reached out. I was hoping that despite everything, we could at least be friends. You're not playing the long game with me, right? I'm not. It's just that it'd be a shame to have known someone as cool as you and not have them be a part of my life anymore. I don't know, Nick. That could be interpreted to be pretty flirty sounding. We're going to live like 500 miles away. If I'm flirting, I'd have to pine for you from a distance. I took a bite out of my pasty. And I'm not flirting anyway. There was somebody else for me. You really want to be friends? I sure do. You know, maybe that motorcycle accident did change something for you. This is the most positive I've ever seen you. She smiled warmly at me. Sure, Nick, I don't mind being friends. Great to hear. With that, do you mind if I ask you a question? Sure, go ahead. Do you smoke? Scarlett nearly spat out her mouthful of pasty. What made you ask that? See, I know that a mildly arrogant, stressed-out working woman like yourself has this ideal image of themselves. Go on, I'm curious to find out what this image is and if I should stab you with my fork. That was the Scarlett I knew. And the image entails taking a long drag from a cig, blowing out a puff into the distance while looking cool, then throwing the cig at her subordinate and yelling at them. Scarlett sized up her fork. As hot as that image might be, I have to discourage you from pursuing it. Smoking really isn't good for your health. Scarlett mimed a couple of stabs with her fork. Threaten me all you want. I will consider being impaled by cutlery well worth the price for providing you with sound medical advice. She rolled her eyes. I don't smoke. What? You thought I'd make a good smoker or something? I think you might have been the greatest to ever do it. Were you always this weird? Not sure. I think it's a relatively new part of my character. She laughed. Well, it's not so bad. Anyhow, you don't have to worry about me becoming a smoker. So long then, Detective Storm. But I'm glad Scarlett could still be a part of my life. That's good to hear. Okay, nice that we also reunited with her. July 26th, 1997. It had been a long time since I woke up early in anticipation for the coming day. For most of my adult life, the alarm clock going off signaled the start of another monotonous loop in a repetitious cycle. But today was different. It was Christmas in July, which was a strange thing to say given it was the 10th anniversary of Alexandria's death, but I had chosen today to mark the start of a new beginning for me. I had worked hard in rehab to be able to be mobile enough for what I intended to do today. It wasn't the start of a brand new Nick Fox, but I hoped it was the start of a slightly more courageous one. When I walked downstairs, my father was already seated at the table, eating a small breakfast consisting of cereal and yogurt, and my mother was in the kitchen, cooking up a storm. Already on the table were a plate of eggs, both scrambled and fried, a plate of bacon, a plate of sausage links, and a plate of hash browns. And from the sound of it, the feast still wasn't done being prepared. I eyed my probable breakfast a little apprehensively. Mom, do I really need this much food? Yes, you do. A breakfast for champions today. It's a big day after all.
Eat up, son. You'll need your energy.
I'm just going to see Alexandria. My mom brought over a plate of pancakes. And we all know how much that means to you. Eat, eat. My mom brought over a couple more dishes, and I did my very best to eat them all. I don't know, if it's something where you think it means a lot to them, wouldn't that potentially make them nauseous? So overeating is not a great idea? Dad kept making cheesy positive comments like how the sun being out boded good things for me. He was right though, it seemed like the weather itself was supporting me. 45 minutes later, and I had eaten my combination of breakfast, lunch, dinner and midnight snack and was getting ready to go. I appreciated the efforts of my parents. This was all they could do for me today. The rest I had to do on my own. I got a small drawstring bag, put the straps around my shoulders, made my last preparations and started to head out. My parents followed me to the door.
Legs feeling okay?
Yep, legs feel fine.
No trouble breathing?
None at all. Feeling great.
Make sure to not overdo it. If anything happens, make sure to give us a call. You have your phone with you?
Of course I do, and I won't overdo it. You make sure to be back by 9 like we agreed. Any later and we're going to go out looking for you. I'll call if anything happens. Don't worry, guys.
Alright then. Good luck out there, son.
That's right, Nick. Good luck. And know that we're always here to support you. I smiled. You'd think they thought I was going into battle or something. Which, in a way, I guess I kind of was. I stepped out the front door, strode down the steps, and then waved back towards my parents standing in the doorway. See you tonight then. They waved back, and I was on my way. It wasn't too hot, mid-70s. There was a light breeze, and it was clear and sunny. A beautiful day that didn't fit the sorrow this day had always brought for me. But I took the weather today as emblematic of who I was going to be. Alexandria's life was to be celebrated and remembered. That's what today was all about. I went to the gazebo where Alexandria and I used to meet. I sat on the bench, remembering her overly regal posture, her awkward attempts to become my friend. We had met a little further down the canal, but in a way, this spot was our beginning. I then walked the streets of downtown, going in all the shops we frequented, wandering the aisles of the library. I bought a Gatorade and walked the trails we used to walk. I stopped by the Classy Jack to say hello to Delilah Loving-Smith, who was still cooking pancakes. I got another Gatorade and made the long journey across town to the cliffside where she had told me that she was a thorn and where we had spent our last moments together. I walked to the spot where we met for our nighttime meetings. I walked all over Alcantra, reliving, reminiscing, and remembering all that Alexandria and I had done together. I didn't do it efficiently. I wandered from place to place, letting my memory guide me to my next destination. Everywhere I could go in Alcantra, I'd find her. Alexandria was weaved into the fabric of my life. She was a part of my good memories, part of the bad ones. Over the last 10 years, I had been haunted by her broken figure. I walked the streets of Alcantra, thinking of what could have been. Lamentations in my head drowned out what others said to me. I only allowed myself to indulge in the pain that Alexandria's existence had brought to my life. But today was different. I felt the touch of her hand walking the streets of downtown Alcantra. I heard her laugh at the Classy Jack. I saw the resolve in her eyes at the confessional cliffs, the twinkle in them when she told me her feelings under the stars. Alexandria was at the center of all the most important moments in my life. Today, and from now on, I chose to associate Alexandria with all the good in my life. It was well into the afternoon when I finished revisiting all the locations I associated with Alexandria. I was starting to get tired, both physically and emotionally, but that was just the warm-up. The main event was next. I turned to the shopping district and bought 2 bouquets of flowers. I bought a bouquet of red roses, mostly because I thought Alexandria would find it funny if I gave her some thorns for the thorn. Hopefully she got a kick from them. I also got a bouquet of dahlias, which I knew from Alexandria's story were the flowers for eternal love. We had made it 10 years, not quite an eternal love, but I figured she'd appreciate the gesture anyway. With the 2 flower bouquets in hand, I made my way from the shopping district to the former mansion that loomed over it. It was no longer the mansion for the Thorns. It had been renovated into a senior living community some years ago. But my destination wasn't the Thorn Mansion anyway. There were 2 paths from the entrance of the former Thorn Mansion. One path led to where I had found Alexandria's body, the other led to where Alexandria was now. In 10 years, I had never visited where Alexandria was now. I walked along the path to the front of the mansion and then walked up the path that would lead me to Alexandria. At the top of this path was a small cemetery, a private graveyard for the Thorns. I had been here only once before, and that was for Alexandria's funeral. I had always been too scared to visit Alexandria's grave because I wasn't sure I could handle the cold realization that she was really gone. However, this was a slightly more courageous Nick. I made my way to the front of Alexandria's grave. On it were the words I had feared seeing. Alexandria Thorn. Below it, May 14, 1969 to July 25, 1987. The date on the tombstone hurt the most. She was only 18 when she was killed, and of those 18 years, I had only known her for 2 months of them. It wasn't just that I was afraid to accept what had happened. I was also too afraid to acknowledge what would never be. But I'm here now. Finally. I could almost hear her. Took you long enough? It sure did. After 10 years, I've finally come to say goodbye. Sorry it took me so long, Princess, but I've come to visit you. I knelt down and placed the flowers in front of the gravestone. I know you're watching over me, but I figured I'd tell you about how the gang is doing, just in case you're an unobservant ghost. I still talk to Warburton pretty often. He even visited me the other day. He's the same as always, but you know, for as silly as he was, I think he was also pretty mature. He adapted to adult life pretty easily. He coaches basketball downstate now. Those poor athletes. Imagine being yelled at all the time by Warburton. I imagined her laughing in response and continued. I haven't heard from Terence in a while. After college he went to Chicago. I think city life always suited him much more than small town life. He's probably living it up down there. Jenny became an athletic trainer. She got her degree from the University of Michigan. I think she's pretty happy now. I even met Scarlett the other day. She's a big shot for an engineering company downstate. She's doing well and thankfully not smoking. And you? I could hear her say that. Well, you already know about me. I'm a bum. For now at least. My parents retired last year. They said I could stay with them as long as I want, but I don't want to eat into their savings. I'm staying the rest of the year though. They insisted on that. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. Typical. Yeah, I guess. I'm deciding between going back to school, maybe get my master's, or getting a new job. Whatever I decide to do, I've decided that I'm going to try and stay in Alcantra. Really? Really. Alcantra is us, you know? It's our town. I promised I'd never leave you. That's not what I meant, dummy. Yeah, well, I decided Alcantra means too much for me to leave. The town that reminds me of you is where I want to be. I still had to tell her something. We had said goodbye already, but I needed to do this for my own sake, so that I could move forward. My heart began to throb a bit. Alexandria, even though I've finally gathered the courage to come here, it doesn't mean it's going to be any easier for me. It doesn't mean I'm going to be any less sad. I still miss you. Just 2 months of my life, that's all I had with you. I once wondered whether I was weak or strong for being unable to move on from the death of someone I had known for such a short time. I guess I had thought I was weak. I've decided to think differently now. It's not about being weak or strong. Sometimes you just love someone that much. Time is nothing in comparison to the strength of some feelings. The ache in my heart began to grow and my eyes began to water. Alexandria. The ache grew and grew. It began to become unbearable. Alexandria. I thought of her. I remembered our time together. I thought of her smile. I could hear her laugh. I still love you. I love you so much. I miss you. I miss you so much. Her gravestone grew increasingly blurry as tears began to form in my eyes. I hadn't cried in 10 years, not since after the funeral, after I had a breakdown imagining revenge. I cried when we said goodbye, but in living reality, I hadn't been able to cry. I tried. I was simply unable to. I had locked up and bottled my feelings. Better to not feel anything than face how I felt about you again. So I curled up within my own miserable shell, retreated further and further away from the reality which you weren't a part of anymore. But now, in front of your gravestone, talking to you like this, I couldn't hold my feelings back anymore. The ache in my heart became too much, and the tears began to flow freely from my eyes to the ground. Alexandria, how am I going to live without you? I knelt down and sobbed. I wept violently. I cried and cried. I had a decade of tears to cry. Why did your death still hurt me so? Would it always hurt this bad? Yes, it would. Because I loved you and would always miss you. It would always hurt this bad. While I was crying and calling out to you, I imagined you coming down from the heavens. You put your arms around me from behind and patted my head. It's okay to cry, you dummy. I could hear her saying that, and then I cried even harder, because of how vividly I could hear those words from her, how real her touch still felt to me. Was I ever going to move on? Of course you're not moving on. That's a terrible phrase. You're moving forward. I imagined Alexandria comforting me. She was right. I would never move on from her. I never wanted to. I would carry Alexandria within me for the rest of my life. This was the first step towards beginning to live life again. It was just a painful step. I cried and cried and cried. I don't know how long I knelt in front of her grave sobbing. It was a long time. Eventually, the tears stopped and I started sniffling instead. I'll be okay, Alexandria. You sure about that? I imagined her saying that and laughed to myself. I must have looked pretty bad right now. I'm sure. Crying had felt pretty good, actually. I'm sure you'll always be with me. I didn't imagine her response. I didn't need to anymore. I patted the flower bouquets. Enjoy your flowers, Alexandria. I'll be back with more soon. I slowly and shakily stood back up. I brushed the dirt off my knees. One last thing, Alexandria. Those parting words of yours really left an impact on me. Let me give them back to you, so you know how much of an effect they can have on someone. Just 6 words. They meant so much. They hurt so bad. Thank you. I love you. Goodbye. With that, my long journey to say goodbye had finally come to an end. Even with that, there was still one last thing I had to do today. It was nearly sunset now. I had spent much longer at her grave than I had intended. I returned to the path and looked down at the steps leading back down to the former Thorn mansion. I looked ahead and thought of what it would be like at the sunset of my life. I knew at the end of my life I would look back on everything and feel that it had all happened in a flash. However, for the me now, the one looking down at the steps wondering if he could take the next step, it felt like a lifetime was going to be such a long time. I was hesitant and uncertain. Saying goodbye to Alexandria didn't mean that my difficulties in life were just going to disappear. It had been so hard for me to take this most recent step. Would all the steps in life be as hard as the one I had just taken? Even so, I took a step down the stairs, then another, then another. I left the cemetery. I had taken a big step in accepting my feelings. I had made a small step in my overall life journey. I would keep taking steps, big and small. Some steps would be harder, some easier. Alexandria would probably tell me to not overthink it. She was right. You just keep taking steps. That's probably why life seems so short when it's about to end. The old cliché, right? You don't see how far you've come until you've looked back. I laughed to myself. Not even 5 minutes had passed since leaving Alexandria's grave, and I was doing in clichés at ages. I was really going to be a mess, wasn't I? That was okay. It's okay to be a mess. So true. I reached the front of the former mansion and quickened my steps. My last location of the day required me to get across town. I was exhausted. Nobody warns you how tiring it is to say goodbye. I picked up the pace anyway. I had made a promise to Alexandria. Tell them about us. I had promised Alexandria that I wouldn't let her just be a memory and that I'd help her be a story. I had also promised that I would spend eternity with her. I would take care of both those things today. Perhaps a convenient afterlife where I could see Alexandria again did exist, and I could be with her for an eternity by doing nothing but living, then dying. I really hoped that was the case. Yet none of us know for certain the answers to the questions we have about life and death. The immortalities discussed in philosophy and religion were too uncertain for me given the promises I needed to keep. For now, I could immortalize her in the only way I knew how. Words, sounds, images, they aren't enough, but they're all we have. Until we meet again, Alexandria, the only eternity I can promise you are the words between pages and the voices between people, the forever of a story. I'll be Artemis, and I'll place you among the stars. Ah, okay, I see. I arrived at Elaine Weatherton's house on the eastern edge of Alcantra after a half-hour of walking. Was the nervous anticipation I was feeling shared by Alistair when he told others about his experience with Alcantra? I took a deep breath and headed to the door. Miss Weatherton's yard still screamed eccentricity because of the Halloween decorations. I hadn't talked to her in 10 years. Well, I guess I had seen her in my constructed purgatory. She was a lot scarier there than she was in real life. Thankfully, I had a much more pleasant role for her to play today. I knocked on the door and Elaine Weatherton's confused face appeared before me. She had added some grey hairs and wrinkles, but otherwise she looked mostly the same. Hello? Do I know you? I guess I hadn't realized how different I looked. A lot had happened since we last talked. Hi, I'm Nick Fox. Oh, Nick! Goodness, I didn't recognize you at all. I heard what happened. Are you doing all right? I'm doing fine now, thanks for asking. Of course. Glad to hear you're doing well. So, what brings you here? You want to know something about Alcantra? I smiled. Actually, I'm here for something different. I know you tell stories, but do you listen to them as well? She tilted her head, confused. I've got something I want to share with you, if that's alright. Depending on your perspective, you might think it's related to the history of Alcantra. She still looked a little confused, but ushered me in. Of course, sit down. I'll make some tea. There was a college-aged girl with frizzy brown hair sitting at the table already. There was a litany of books in front of her. That's my apprentice, Elsa. Elsa looked up from her books and nodded at me. I nodded back and sat down at the end of the table. I looked around the room. The room hadn't changed besides adding more books. That made me happy. It also made me happy that Miss Weatherton had someone who would take over for her. It made what I was doing all the more worthwhile. I didn't bother Elsa while Miss Weatherton made us tea. In the comfortable silence, I thought about what I was going to say. I was supposed to be back by 9. Yeah, that wasn't going to happen. I'd have to call my parents later. The story I was going to tell was a long one. Was telling the story going to mark a new beginning for me? Maybe, but the process called self doesn't begin or end. Nick Fox would neither begin or end after telling the story. He would feel a little better, and Alexandria Thorne might be thought of a little longer and by more people. That's all there was to it. Miss Weatherton brought the tea over and sat down. So, you had a story for me? Elsa perked up. An excited glimmer appeared in her eyes. A story? I smiled at her. Yes, I have a story I want to tell. You'll be taking over eventually for Miss Weatherton, right? She nodded enthusiastically. That's right. Then I want you to hear it most of all. She straightened up and whipped out a pencil and notebook. Understood. Miss Weatherton and I laughed. It's a long story. I hope you don't mind. Miss Weatherton waved her hand at me. No problem at all. We love stories here. Elsa continued nodding enthusiastically. I looked at my audience of 2. It's taken so long to get here. This is for you, my beloved Alexandria. I took a deep breath. All right then. Let me get started. This is the story of Alexandria Thorne and Nick Fox. I call it The Ghost of Alcantra. And there you have it. Well, I like that. I like that as an ending. Not just keeping his promise, but yeah, turning it into a story. Wow. So the game also has some side stories that were added somewhat recently during an event. I do want to get into those as well, but not anymore today, so I will do that as a separate video. But yeah, that was The Ghost of Alcantra. Very interesting. Didn't quite go where I thought it would at first. Like, it started off... How do I say it? Like, I thought it would lean a bit more into the mystery. But in the end, things were basically as we thought. Like, there weren't too many plot twists in the actual murder cases, is what I meant. Which makes sense if Alexandria knew so much from the start, or... yeah. But yeah, overall, it was mainly a love story. And about letting go, about accepting that death is part of life. Something like that. I cannot put it as eloquently as Alexandria has. Because in a sense you could also have ended the tale with Nick being reunited with Alexandria in death, and that being their kind of happy end. But I like that it wasn't, that yeah, that he was convinced to live on, not just by Alexandria herself, but by himself. Like that's also very important, that was a major part, that only he himself could really decide to live, and live for himself, not for her, not for others, for himself. That might be tough for some, but it's very important. So I like that they made that point. My God, Chopin. Fun. Yeah, so I think I mentioned this in the very first video I did for the series, but this is a free game, so yeah, thank you for reading, but also thank you for making this game, making it available to everyone for free. It's fantastic. This element of using the photos as well is fun. Oh, something more. Hello. Like, these in the background, these are all real photos that were just like put a filter on it or something. From, like, Alcantra itself isn't a real place, but this was taken in like similar small towns. So yeah. Okay, June 6th, 1987. This is not one of the side stories, is it? No. I sometimes wonder how grey my world would look like to someone else. After years of confinement behind the thorn walls, I had finally been allowed out into the world. With every person I passed, I imagined that the world looked like to them, how much more vivid it must be compared to mine. What? Some more Alexandria? Focus? Okay. Just one moment. Let me save this here and have a look, because again, these are supposed to be side tier bonus scenes. Oh. Okay, no, that doesn't seem to be any of those. I was wondering if we were going automatically into the bonus scenes. But I guess not. And the title's spoilers? But okay. Okay, let's see. What else do you have to say, Alexandria? It saddened me to think that any reciprocal reflections on their part would only invoke disappointment or pity. Perhaps wondering how different the world must be for other people is a relevant pastime for only the lonely and envious. The world of chit-chat, of festival stalls, of meeting with friends didn't have room for my type of thoughts. It was the night of the summer festival, and everyone around me looked so happy, so carefree. I was an outsider, lost in this sea of people. The only one who realized that I didn't fit in was me. The voices around me continued, and it was disorienting because it reinforced that even though I was just one part of a much larger whole, I played no meaningful role in that larger whole. It wasn't a part of the flurry of voices. I wasn't a part of the flurry of voices, the stamping of feet, the outcries of joy. Tired of this realization beating down on me, and because the loudness was annoying and nauseating, I left the summer festival. I walked alongside the canal. It wasn't all bad. I never saw sights like the clearness of a canal behind the thorn walls. Perhaps I could pursue a career in poetry, writing verse about the beauty of nature and about my alienation from the rest of society. Hunkering down within a no-one-understands-me shell might bring out the artist within me. Sadly, I didn't compose any poems. I just kept walking, eventually settling down on a spot by the water far enough away from the festival that I could pretend that my distance from the event was what kept me from meeting people, rather than my own awkwardness. The summer festival was based on the story of Alistair and Alcantra Thorne, who I guess were my great-grandparents from many years ago. I loved the story, but it made me sad too. It made me sad that my own life would never make such a good story. Oh. I looked over at the water and the moon. You could see the stars, though they'd be obscured by the fireworks show soon enough. I would watch the fireworks show and see if the explosions in the sky could stir some explosions within myself, and then I would return home. The bright stillness of the moon comforted me, but I also felt like that honest light made it hard to hide one's feelings. You couldn't hide who you were from the moon. Yes, moon, I admit it. I'm lonely. I thought the moon might have laughed in response. Giving up after just one day? Pessimism is justified with circumstances like mine. 18 years of imprisonment really screws a girl up. Who knows, things might change for you soon. Like I had reason to think that anything could ever change in my life. A gust of wind blew by, and that's when I heard his voice. Are you here to see the fireworks? I turned around startled. It was a boy around my age who had spoken to me. He had a gentle look on his face, as if he had read my mind and understood the need to communicate with small celestial bodies. Maybe I was projecting in response to his kind smile. Panicking, I felt my anti-people barriers rise. I had wanted someone to reach out all day, and now that it had happened, I was suspicious. I am. He waited a moment to let me elaborate, which I had no intention of doing, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't have the capability to say anything more. The realization that he was another human being, and one that was around my age and nice-looking and had a kind smile, had hit me, and suddenly thoughts became very difficult. I'm Nick Fox. I've lived here my whole life. I'm guessing you're not from around here. Was it that obvious? I couldn't believe my patheticness revealed my foreignness. I nodded my head in response. Where are you from, then? Oh no. What was I supposed to say in response to this? I had a planned answer. I was good with plans. What was it? I drew a blank. He kept looking at me, and that made me draw blanks even harder. None of your business. God, not like that. I plaintively and my father. If the men in my life hadn't been such dirtbags, I wouldn't be so quick to venom. Sorry, there are secrets a girl has to keep to herself. There, that made me sound cool and mysterious. I could do this. I've heard about the summer festival before, but I've never gotten to actually attend. This is my first time getting to go. I tried my best to smile, but I wasn't sure if it showed up on my face. I wasn't used to smiling. Well, the fireworks show starts in a few minutes. There's a spot through the path there that has a great view. You're welcome to join me. I got up slowly to try and mask my excitement. Sure. That was the start of us. I should thank the moon for its clear light. You can't hide who you are under that light, and I think Nick glimpsed what my world was like. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe there were others who wondered how much the world would change if you saw it through someone else's eyes. Is that what led you to invite me to the fireworks? Is my world as grey as I think it is? And do you think my world could change? I hoped it could. Nick asked polite questions to get to know me. I fumbled and stumbled with varying barbed responses. The combination of romanticism, nervousness, and apprehension swirled within me. I wanted to reassure Nick that I was a mess, that his kindness was appreciated, even if I couldn't show it. I wanted to inquire loudly and rudely if he was just being a creep and I was naive to follow a guy I didn't know to remote fireworks viewing locations. I wanted to proclaim confidently that I had waited my whole life to meet him. It was like I felt everything someone could possibly feel in just one conversation. Of course, all he could probably see was some guarded, weird girl. I was grateful for that, but it also made me a little sad. We watched the fireworks together. In those brief moments, from silence to explosions to silence, I thought of a life. I thought of a world where Nick showed me his world, and I showed him mine. I thought about a world where I came to love being alive, but I was taken too soon from that world. The spark of life, just a brief firework in the night sky. It would be over so soon. The fireworks, this moment, this life. If life was like that, would this really all be worth it? Yes, it would. One glimpse of another's world, one glimpse into mine. Just that would make anything worth it. The fireworks ended, and Nick turned to glance at me. I knew then and there that this fireworks show was a beginning and not an ending, that my life would be intertwined with his. So, you enjoyed the show? If you're visiting, there's not a lot to do here, but at the very least, the people here know gunpowder. I got up.
I did. It was a great show.
I looked at him for a moment. In that world where I was taken away too soon, I imagined him in it. I imagined the sadness that world would bring him. But I also saw in that world the happiness we'd share, the gratitude we'd have for meeting each other. Knowing that, I continued.
I've been in a position where I don't get to interact with people very often, especially people my age, so I'm sorry if I was a little awkward. I don't have many friends. I have everything I need and very little of what I actually want. But recently, something good happened to me, and I got the opportunity to come here. I had heard of the summer festival, and I love the story of the town of Alcantra. As for hobbies, I read lots of novels, of all types, but I love mysteries and romances the most. I can't tell you my last name, my situation, or where I'm from, but at the very least I can tell you that I'm very glad you invited me to see the fireworks with you. I chose that world anyway. I had finally joined the world where people laughed, cried, got hurt, and fell in love. I know you'll choose that world too, Nick. Anyway, I have to go now. My, caretakers will be waiting for me.
I was very, very happy. I gave him my brightest smile. The most memorable greetings and farewells are accompanied by smiles, and I wanted this parting to be memorable. My world had begun to change. I waved goodbye.
Bye, Nick.
He smiled and waved back. See you later, Alexandria. I would be leaving him, but I knew we would meet again. We parted ways, and I began looking forward to the day that I might see him again. The end. Okay. With Artemis and Orion, a love story placed in the stars. Would you like to read the author's afterword? Okay. I don't know how long it is, but... I've always loathed the idea that fiction is escapist. I can't think of any tool more readily available to help one understand and deal with the world around them than fiction. Perhaps coping, rather than escaping, better describes what fiction helps us do. Yeah, agreed. That idea goes both for the people creating works of fiction and the people experiencing those works. The Ghost of Alcantra was a tool to express a part of me that isn't expressed often. Most people who know me would not describe me as romantic. In fact, I'm quite vocal about my skepticism about the value of romantic love. Even while I was writing The Ghost of Alcantra, I was lying through my teeth telling people I was writing a mystery story, knowing full well I was writing a love story. Even so, I've always loved romance stories, and I believe I love them precisely because those stories have shown me worldviews and perspectives so different from my own. Maybe this is me coping, trying to rationalize my colder, more indifferent self with the world around me, but I really do believe that love is out there and it means something. Stories allowed me to believe in a world I would never have known existed otherwise, and I've always been grateful. The Ghost of Alcantra was written to express my love for those stories. Unfortunately, as a first-time writer of fiction, my ability to convey these grateful feelings was severely lacking. As such, the best I could do to write The Ghost of Alcantra was to draw from the large reservoir of stories I love and implement elements from them. There is not a single original idea to be found in this story. This is a chimera narrative built from ideas I admired and envied. I feel no shame in admitting as much. It was that admiration and envy that spurred me to write this story in the first place. How many stories are truly original? Come on. We all are inspired by other stories, right? However, I do wish to acknowledge to you, the reader, that the story you have just read is one you have already read. This is a story about love and death that has been told many, many times before. And as such, I wish to thank you for enduring yet another tale about the promises of love, about facing life given the prospect of death. I thank you for reading my version of these clichés, for allowing the expression of a me that would otherwise never be known. I hope that even a fraction of what I love about stories, the promise of connection, of a forever given the possibility of never, has been conveyed with The Ghost of Alcantra. This is my love letter to fiction, from me to you. Colin Campbell. I like that you included that. Finish the afterword. Yo, someone read this, let's go. It's the achievement. Yeah, if it's in the game, I'm gonna read it. That's what I do. Huh. No, I like that. I like reading like the author's thoughts. That was nice. So yeah, again, I did enjoy the overall story. It wasn't quite what I expected, but I like how it was rounded off. If we're thinking about the complete story from start to finish, I don't know, there were some ups and downs. I'm just gonna be honest here. I did enjoy it, but there were some parts that I felt were kind of, I don't want to say too long, because it takes time to establish relationships, dynamics, and whatnot. Some parts I felt were like a little repetitive, but I also wouldn't be able to put my finger on what to, like, where to shorten it or something, okay? I'm not like a pro writer myself or something, so I cannot really put my finger on it. I feel like it could have been maybe a little condensed, but maybe that's also just my feeling because I'm sitting here reading this out loud, and so it is of course still longer than if I had just read it by myself. I don't know. But again, overall, enjoyed it, how it all came together at the end. Lovely. Love the message there at the end. And yeah, again, next time we're gonna have a look at the bonus scenes. These are supposed to be a little lighter, I was told. And yeah, again, thank you for making this game, like making it in general, and also for making it free. So anyone that wants to like read it again in their own time, look at some parts without my voice, that's totally fair. You can download it from Steam, and well, I have the links in the description where you can download it for free. And yeah, that's it from me for today. As always, I'd really appreciate if you'd let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time when we'll have a look at the bonus scenes. Bye bye!